Welcome back to HotRod Mess. I'm Angie, and today we are going to be discussing the Kenny Brown, which is amazing. And I have on with me today Mary. Mary is a longtime friend of mine, and she is more than just friend. She is like the badass, and we want to hear Mary's badass. She's like the fam that is from another fam for me. Mary, bring it in. What? I'm so glad to have you on the show.
Angie,
today.
This is so exciting.
Very exciting.
Been a fan of yours for many, many years, and to see you launch HotRod Mess in all its iterations and everything that you've done, your podcast, it is chaos, and just the stories told, and very personal stories and business stories and all of that. It's so you. This was just so meant to be you, Angie.
Thanks, Mary. Thank you, Mary. I appreciate you.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
I brought you on because I love, a friend of ours has passed away, and his name was Mac, and he was kind of the reason why we met, actually.
Absolutely was.
He was the reason why we met, and
for sure.
And it was that Shelby Mustang that came to us. If I remember correctly, it had wires. It was just a wire mess.
It
just
was.
Mess.
And John spent so much time, little John, crawling around underneath, over the top, trying to figure out what the electrical problem was.
To get it to run, because it kept choking out. It wouldn't stay running. It would just shut off. And it was a beautiful car. Yeah. And Mac told us about it, how it was because of Kenny Brown. So now I'm intrigued, and now I really want to know. So what started you off with the Kenny Brown Shelby? Or Mustang, correct me which one it is.
Well, a little history before that. Kenny Brown came into my life, into Mac's life, back in the 2002, 2003. Actually, before the Shelby, it was the Mercury Marauder.
Okay.
So it was a project car that was first pitched to Ford by the project team, and Ford decided not to take it. Basically, the Mercury Marauder was a Panther platform car, which also is the same platform as Crown Victoria and the Grand Marquis. So it was the same body style.
Yeah, they kind of look the same.
We kind of call it a Frankenstein car because it really took the best of performance out of all of them between the Lincoln, Ford, and Grand Marquis and the Crown Victoria. So it was a very limited production. 2003 and 2004 were the production years. They only made 11,052 of them. Wow. So very limited production. Wow. But it was a badass car.
Oh, it sounds badass too.
For a badass car.
Yeah.
And Mac and I actually met through a website of car enthusiasts about the Mercury Marauder. And we're just insanely passionate about learning about the car. It's the first car that I ever had that we were looking to do modifications. So this is where Kenny Brown came in to the picture. Kenny was a long time aftermarket, actually one of the most, certainly a genius when it came to everything Mustang. But it's not the engine performance per se. It's about the handling. It's about the suspension. It's about the control arms and the lowering, all of those things to make it a better driver.
And this was a heavy car.
Oh, the Marauder, yeah, absolutely. It's a two-ton car.
But I've heard that it handles extremely well.
Because they beefed up Ford themselves, Mercury, same family. They were actually built in the same factory, the Marauder, the Grand Marquis, and the Crown Victoria. And I actually got to tour the factory up in London, Ontario.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Long after the Marauder had stopped, because it was only a 2-year production run. But it's really cool to walk through and see, and actually the section where they would take the Lincolns and make them stretch Lincolns. So that was an offset in a corner where they would stretch the Lincolns, which was pretty cool. It was really neat. So now I've lost my train of thought.
Sorry, I spoiled you. I do that. I spoil everybody.
So what Kenny was doing on the Mustangs, he had actually he had taken a Crown Victoria and tried to do. And actually, it had got I can't remember the name of the car. The Lounge Lizard was the name of the car that he did some modifications on in putting a supercharger on it. So that's what he started to do with then when the Marauder came out, he says, "Oh, I can put a supercharger on this." So this is where he came into the Marauder world. He created a Vortex supercharger kit for it, and that's where his introduction to the Marauder community came very early on. And Mac, being Mac, he was an early adopter of everything. So once he found out about the Marauder, he actually had owned 3 Marauders. And after he learned
He
about
owned 3 Marauders and only 11,000 of
not
them.
at the, yes, not at the same time.
Oh, okay,
not at the same time. But once he heard basically the experimental Marauder that Kenny had, basically the prototype was for sale, he quickly sold his first Marauder and was able to buy the basically the test car. So it was the Marauder 1X. We called it the 1X because it was before the full production of the aftermarket installation of the supercharged kits. So he was just, and he would beat that car to death. Basically, just beating up on it, just seeing how far it would go. And
how far can you push it?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the first times I saw Mac in person, we were down in Ennis, Texas for our first Marauder meet. So the owner of a website that we all met through, who lives outside of Dallas, said, "Let's have a get together."
At this time, did you own a Marauder?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So
right.
I bought my Marauder in September of 2002, and this would have been the spring of 2003. There was a Ford event at Ennis, Texas. So a bunch of us from around the country. I actually flew in because I wasn't driving my car all the way to Texas. But a lot of people drove in from Florida, from Alabama, and Mac and a crew, he was living in Chicago at the time, drove down from Chicago to Ennis, Texas. And some had come from Maryland, some had come from New York, New Hampshire, Michigan, a lot from Michigan. So they came and we all met in person for the first time.
But you've all been on this.
We'd all been behind the keyboard chatting for a number of months. So it was really cool to start to meet. And as it's a Ford event, there was drag racing. There was a street parade through Ennis, and there was all kinds of events. So it was kind of cool to see that. We had a big banquet, and actually Mac at that time had the Kenny Brown Marauder, and he actually, because Kenny couldn't make it, he actually spoke to the group on behalf of Kenny Brown.
Oh,
so he's already being a Kenny Brown representative early
that's
on.
Awesome.
It was really cool. One of the neat things about us meeting in person is we actually were able to invite the program manager from Ford Mercury to come down to talk to us about the car. And he became fast friends. So every time we had an annual event, Steve Babcock and his wife, Carol, would come from Michigan to wherever we were. And it was, beautiful. I mean, such a great relationship. And we were sort of always had the inside skinny on why was this done? Why were 355 rear axle put in instead of 410? And it had to do with the gas guzzler tax. So you had to back off on it. So all these little things that, that we got the inside on it. And it was Elena Ford that put the kibosh on the third production year on it because she was more into minivans.
Minivans? Oh my God!
I know.
So let me get this right. You're gonna have a badass car for a minivan?
Yeah, I know.
Good Lord! I don't even think Ford makes a minivan right now, except for like the regular work van. I guess it could be.
Yeah.
No, they do make them now, but they're ugly as sin.
Yeah. So it was. We were also disappointed because they talked about. We wished there was a convertible, and I mean, but what it did early on with Kenny starting it, and there were a few others too. There's another company out of Detroit called Trilogy, and they were also starting to do aftermarket, actually around the same time, aftermarket superchargers, but they were using Vortex technology. I'm sorry, they were using Roots technology instead of Vortex technology.
Okay.
So centrifugal versus Roots. And there were definitely factions on one side or the other, and whatnot.
Of course, there's always that
supercharging. So, but also then the owner of Trilogy, who had two of them that he was using as prototypes, and he would drag those and all of that. But he became part of our family too, which is really cool, and we're all awesome. Still friends today.
That is so beautiful. Really, that's wild.
It is pretty cool. When a couple of years ago, when Steve Babcock was on the eastern coast, and he lives in Michigan. They were doing New England for vacation, and then he said, "Oh, they're going to Provincetown for dinner." So I met them up at the Lobster Pot in Provincetown.
Oh, that's awesome!
Really cool. I know.
So awesome.
That's how close we came.
That's great.
We came with all of these friends. So.
And how did So when I met Mac, he was talking about how he raced the Shelbys around and tested them on tracks for Kenny Brown. How did that? And I've seen a picture of you, actually. I think one of your pictures of you with the Kenny Brown Mustang or Shelby is. Excuse me, sorry, Mac. He's rolling over right now. I just did that.
All right, that's all the time.
I have a picture of you standing. I think it was at the track. I think you guys had and you had two of them. There was Lucy and Lucy 2.
Lucy and Lulu.
Lucy and Lulu, yes.
Lulu was the first Shelby. And this Shelby was from Shelby American. This was Carol Shelby's company out of Las Vegas. And he loved, oh my gosh. He put a 6-speed Tremec in it. It was also methanol injection. So it was detuned to about 720 horsepower at the rear wheel.
Wow.
It was crazy.
Wow.
Crazy car. It was just so loud. And I loved it when I was passing someone on the highway and you throw it into a lower gear. Oh my God, the sound of it is like deafening. It was so cool. The best part of both the Marauder and the Shelby, especially when we were doing convoys, were tunnels.
Oh my God! You just throw it in neutral and just. Oh
my God! It was the resonating sound of the tunnel was always the best part.
That's wild.
We used to do so many convoys, and even after that first trip to Texas, because we had all so connected for every year for the next 15 years, we got together annually in different parts of the country, and I was always part of the planning team, and it was just so much fun. The second year was in Indianapolis, and we were tagging on to the International Mercury Owners Association, the IMOA's event that they were already having at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So we joined in with them. We did a lap.
That's awesome.
One very slow, controlled lap of the Brickyard, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So that was fun. But we also rented Indianapolis Raceway Park, which is where the MAC Nationals are. I don't know if they still are, but that's a big time drag track that's not far from the Brickyard. So this is where I got my first experience drag racing.
Okay.
And actually Mac couldn't make it because this was still just a few years after 9/11, and it was in September. He was a police sergeant for the city of Chicago. So they took away all the time off around the anniversary just to be sure. So he could make it. He said, hey, Mary, if you want to fly into Chicago, I'll give you my car.
Sweet.
So drove down from Chicago to Indianapolis, and that's where I had my first experience of drag racing. I lost my first 2 races. One, I jumped the light, and the second race, I was too slow off the start, but then I won the next 10 races.
That's awesome. Funny they say that women actually, believe it or not, in drag racing, we have more patience. So we drag race a lot better after we get that itch out.
Yeah. I got the fear out.
Once we get it down and we get it out, they say we have more patience to wait and then go. It's like I don't know, I read it in some book that I was reading about drag racing.
Yeah.
And it said that women are actually better drag racers. I'm just saying, man.
I love that.
It was a thing.
I love that.
It was a thing. Yep. Who knows if it's accurate?
And I think at that point, there weren't many supercharged cars, but I can't remember if I was up against other supercharged cars or they were just stock cars. But it doesn't matter. I still won 10 races.
We had that customer at the shop that was a big enthusiast because he has a Marauder.
Yeah.
And he, as well, he couldn't wait to try to meet Mac. And unfortunately, I don't believe he ever got to meet Mac.
I'm not sure if they did or not.
No, I have no idea. But every time he would pull into the shop, I'd be like, oh, he's here. Oh, he's here. And I'd know because of the sound. It has a very distinct sound.
And a lot of us, actually, they were Meg's tips, but we worked with Meg's to do a resonator delete so they would be louder.
That's
so
awesome.
A lot of us put on these beautiful chrome tips by Megs, but they just took out the resonator inside, so it was just even more beautiful a tone.
That's awesome. Awesome.
It really became a car that there was just so much going on with the modifications. Like I mentioned, the 355 axle that came on it, a lot of people, if they weren't supercharging it, they were going to 410s, or 455s or 435s. Tries to give you more torque, more to the ground to move the car faster.
How are burnouts?
Oh, God. There's so many burnouts, and sometimes we got in trouble with burnouts. Who not? But I mean, especially with the sound. And
How can you not?
You have to.
How can you not?
You have to do it. So
I do remember the one time that William took when the Shelby came back to life. They took it down the road because Mac had said, "You're never going to believe the power in this thing. You're never going to believe the power in this thing." And John said, "No, I bet you it's got some power." And then William took it for a ride down the road, and I think Mac actually was in the car with him.
Really?
And he goes, "Did you shit yourself a little?" He goes, No, I haven't shit myself yet. A little nervous. Didn't shit myself though. That very calm. Yeah. And he came back to the shop and he said to me, he goes, "Your husband thinks I was going to shit my pants. I'm wearing a white shirt." Fuck is your white shirt got to do with shitting your pants?
I had not heard that before.
Yeah. That I remember distinct. He would always show up at the shop to check on the car because he was married. He loved that car.
Absolutely.
Loved that car.
Absolutely.
So he would always he would sit there and he'd wear a white shirt. He'd always have a hat on, I don't want to say like a hat, like not like a baseball hat. Mac's hats were
fedoras.
Fedoras.
He was into the fedoras. Yes.
They were beautiful hats.
Yeah, really nice fedoras.
And jeans, like these nice nice blue.
He cared about how he looked.
Yes, and he always smelled great. I'd be like, Max here.
Yeah.
But he
it's that gray flannel that he wore.
Yeah, that damn. Yep. But he because of that car is how we started our friendship, and he became family.
Yeah.
And I never, every time we had functions at the house or whatever, I was always busy doing so. I never got to sit down and really find out what the Kenny Brown Shelby was and why were there two. Were they the same? Were they different? Why were there two of them?
He had a car. He always had, for a long time, he had two cars. So he had Lulu that was sort of the special day, but then he had a daily driver. And then prior to Lucy, he had a red Mustang as a daily driver. But one time he went someplace and saw that there was an identical car to Lulu available for sale in an impulse buy, in a sense. It was an automatic. But other than that, they were both 07 Shelby GTs built out of Shelby American in Las Vegas, and they looked identical because they had the same color black with the silver stripe down the front and the rear. So ended up with
Didn't they both have Carroll Shelby signatures on them?
No, only Lulu did.
Okay. And Lulu was the stick shift?
Lulu was the first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Lulu was the first.
Carroll Shelby, I don't know how Mac got an invitation, but Carroll Shelby invited Mac.
Because it's Mac.
Invited Mac to go down to Carroll's ranch in Terlingua, Texas. So he did a road trip down to Terlingua, and on Shelby's property there, they had places for them to stay, and they would do more. I don't think there wasn't a drag. They weren't doing drag race or performance driving, but they would do convoys and all of that. And he got to play poker with Carroll. And I have a picture somewhere of Carroll sitting in the passenger seat and signing the airbag.
That's awesome.
So he actually got to
Oh,
spend some time with Carroll Shelby, which was a gift.
that is a gift.
In 2012, we started from Chicago, which is where the beginning of Route 66 is, and we drove to Vegas for the 50th anniversary of Shelby American. Unfortunately, Carroll was in the hospital and died a few months later, so we didn't get to meet him there, but we had an amazing 3-week ride going down Route 66 and seeing all the highlights that 66 had to have. And some towns have 4 different Route 66s depending on construction or whatever, and they're all labeled differently, an alternate 66 or historic 66. So we drove to Vegas.
How do you pick which one to go on, though?
Sometimes and sometimes it was just a regular highway, but we wanted to get off where we could to see we had a map of all the huge giant statues and all the different things, the chair, whatever, just to get a really feel. Like we stayed at the Wagon Wheel Hotel, just all funky, cool stuff. I'd never done anything like that before.
That's awesome.
Never even thought about doing
Look
anything
at you
like
now,
that before.
Mary. You've been all over the place.
Oh my God. Pretty funny. So we end up staying in Vegas. We went through the Shelby factory tour and all that, and then big, events and functions and whatnot. And the track that we were doing that day was Spring Mountain, which is about 45 minutes outside of Vegas to the west. So we did two track days. So this is performance road course driving. So this is not a drag strip.
Awesome. Okay.
So we basically we used Lucy and not Lulu, but we basically were driving. We just take our turns driving the course, and I have pictures of all of that. And so
and how was that?
fun.
So who was there with you with the car? Like who was there also?
It was all Shelby's. The whole thing was everyone that came to the event in Vegas. If you wanted to drag race, you paid a little extra for it, or a lot extra for it. And we then drove to Spring Mountain we had the track to ourselves for 2 days.
That's awesome.
It was just so
what an
cool
experience. That's so awesome.
And in performance road course driving, it's not a race. You're racing against yourself in a sense if you're tracking your times, but it comes down to precision. And this is where part of this trip to Vegas with Lucy was that we were working with Kenny Brown before the trip, and he put in his new suspension kit in it. So we were doing kind of a blog along the way of how we were feeling the performance of the car. So it stiffened up the suspension. It lowered the car. Okay. It actually made it a better track car. Because when you're taking a corner, any car, when you're taking a corner, you're going to lean into the corner. You're going to feel a change in, sometimes you hesitate because, all right, I feel like I'm going to spill, but I'm not. But the suspension that Kenny Brown built for the car kept it flat. So it didn't matter how fast you were going into a corner, how much you turned, the car stayed flat.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you could take that apex much quicker. You didn't have to break into it because you thought you were, going to slide or whatever. So this is where we were doing basically a test of his suspension for the whole trip. Whether it was gravel road, whether it's highway, whether it's back road with cracks in the road and all that, and then 2 days on the track. It was just an amazing experience.
Was it, I'm just curious, was it like a rough ride because if you're lowering it, like with any car that you lower, and you stiffen up a ride, when you hit bumps and stuff, it's more like a doo.
Oh, yeah. Doo. Yeah, you would definitely feel it more so.
It becomes less enjoyable for some.
And you have to pay attention to things like going into a gas station and you see the gas cover where they fill the gas tank. You can't go over those because you don't want to drag it along. Of course, it has all the spoiler and the lip spoiler up front and all that, so we don't want to lose that. So you got to pay attention to that, or potholes or things like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but
so what did it change in the suspension? Did it change his new stuff? Was it like it changed the control arms? Did it change?
He changed all that. I don't have the list. But there's a number of things that are all part of it. Put jacking rails in it, so it was easier to jack it up because the Shelby didn't have very, very, very good setup there. So just anything he thought that would just give it a better performance, and mostly related to track, but anyone could order the kit.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, where is Kenny Brown now in all of this?
He passed away.
Okay.
He passed away about 4 years ago.
Oh, that sucks.
But his wife, Carrie, who is a good friend, has kept the company running.
That's awesome.
Yeah. One of the things that Kenny had been doing for a number of years was doing a Saturday morning video podcast.
Okay.
So on YouTube or on Facebook. So they have all the archives of everything he did. So they're still running it.
That's
because his
beautiful.
knowledge is still so vital.
Yeah.
So Carrie Southworth, his wife, and Rich Cottrell, who is an employee, also they've kept it running because the business is still going on. So they're still helping Mustang and Shelby owners really get the best performance out of their cars.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I wonder if because you hear about Hennessy performance and all of that, but I think that's more geared towards I don't think it's geared towards suspension. I think it's geared more towards like the motor and all that.
Right.
But I wonder if they collaborated together what they could build. That would be amazing.
There is a Ford engineer named Jerry Wroblewski who did the tuning for the Marauder for Mercury, and he also became a friend.
That's awesome.
So the first time I met Jerry, he had come to Worcester.
Okay.
And was tuning the cars, but it was tuning on a chip. It was before they had handheld tuners.
Yep.
So, but we also didn't want to avoid the warranty. So actually having the handheld tuners is much easier because I would never pass inspection with the Marauder if I left the performance tune in it. So I'd have to throw the original tune back into the car.
Yeah, we just tried to do that with the Suburban a couple times. It didn't work out very well.
But Jerry became a good friend in the overall
awesome.
circle of us and the performance and whatnot. So it's really cool to make connections with all of this. When we had our second meet, if you will, in Indy that I mentioned, Kenny Brown's shop was on Gasoline Alley. So he had us all over for a cookout.
That's awesome.
Yeah, which is great. So we got to see his shop. That's the first time I actually had a chance to meet him and his wife, Carrie. But it was really neat. I mean, here we are, Gasoline Alley, hanging out, and just looking at all the shops and all the names down the row. Literally, is an alley, a row of all these warehouses, and he had a shop there, and we got to look through it. You know, it was really, really cool. So
that's beautiful.
So that was really neat.
As I always tell everybody that America is America. Like everybody's like, oh, why cars? Why cars? And I'm like, well, if you think about it, everywhere you turn, there's like you just said, Gasoline Alley. Like it's a whole road just of car stuff.
Yep.
Like our world in America is cars.
Right.
I don't care what you say. I mean, look how well your circle is, and I bet you anything in your circle comes back to cars. How did we meet?
Right. Cars, exactly. Exactly.
So that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then I'm intrigued. It's interesting that you say about the suspension and it staying, because you know, you think of like air ride and all that now in the newer cars, like the Escalade, for example. When you're in a turn, you're always like this. You're always straight because of air ride. But it stiffens when it needs to. I mean, it's all computerized and all that.
Sure.
Now you step into the 69 Chevelle when we put upper and lower tubular control arms and all that, and we upgraded the suspension. When you go around a corner in that, now it's fantastic. I mean, you can literally just right around, and you don't feel like you're going to barrel roll. You don't feel unsafe at all.
Yep.
And just those little things that we changed were amazing. And obviously in lowering it, because then you lower the center of gravity. Other than the time that we ripped, I wanted it literally on the ground, and they made it literally on the ground. And then you talk about the bumps on the gas station. I got a phone call. Hey, you're going to need to send a tow truck. Why? Well, all your oil is way back there. What? Yeah, we rounded the corner, and the road went up, and we went down, and all your oil went back that way. But now, you know what? You have a window in your oil pan. Well, what the fuck? I got a window
for draining now, right?
Yeah. You don't need to pull the plug, honey. It's all there. And then we had to scramble for the weekend to try to pull the whole motor back out, because the way that it is, you have to pull the motor out. You put a whole new we had to change out the pump, the oil pump. We had to change it out to a shorter one. So we just put the motor back in it. But you know what? Luckily, then it's next time around, we're putting another motor in it, because we did find a big block. She's gonna be alive again. And Now we just know that we need a bigger, shorter
Yep.
trunk,
Yep.
and we won't have that. And we're going to actually talk about suspension and in the way things articulate. There's actually a weird dead spot in the steering when you go to a certain way, and it's because he had to bring the car up. And when he brought the car up, it was for two reasons. It was for the oil pan situation, but then he had to bring it up again because the headers were dragging.
Oh dear.
So this time around, he says, I'm just going to buy the headers.
Mm-hmm.
We'll sell them or whatever because we're going to put the LS3 in it eventually. And it's wild because when you start thinking about like what Kenny Brown was doing, and I listen to all the stuff going on at the shop, and then you listen to like the Marauder and how all this was the people just standing around going, let's do this to make it better. And it's amazing. And then you think about like Julia's Mustang, her Shelby. It's what could they do with that if you combined, because she has the real carbon fiber wheels, and she has the real, like, everything on that car is just beautiful. And then she just had it tuned with Hennessy Performance. If you took Kenny Brown and dumped his stuff in there, and then you have Hennessy, and now you would just have this amazing GT500 machine. Like, I can't even imagine.
I have to meet her someday, hopefully soon, and I have to see her car, so we'll have to work.
Oh my God, she's a doll. Next time we go to a live, I'm going to go in again, because she actually asked, because she now brought up her other Mustang, and she's a big Ford girl, and her, I think she said it was an 03 or 2012 maybe. But her Mustang that she has now, the GT500, was the last year of that particular car. And I think the car originally, like, it has the Acaro seats, everything is Alcantara suede headliner in it.
Nice.
She did remove the rear seat out of it. It's a two-door, but she did remove the rear seat out of it for more performance.
Is it a S197?
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't remember, but I know that it's no longer in performance. Like, they're no longer producing them. Sorry, they're no longer in production.
Is it the newer body style or is it the older body style?
Okay. It's new body style.
So the S550. Okay.
And it's a GT. I think she said it was. It's actually on one of my lives that I went on, and I'll have to. Well,
she has the GT500, but the S550 is the model, the body style.
Okay.
If you remember what Lucy and Lulu looked like, that's the S197 body style.
Okay.
So they made the change to what it looks like now, which is the S550.
Yeah, and she has, I think, I want to say hers is the newer body style, or it's maybe one before.
Okay.
Because I think she said it's a 2023.
Oh, so that's the new body style.
Yeah.
That's the new body style.
Okay.
Because we also had a 2020 Shelby that we bought.
Yes.
350.
And what was that car about?
Oh, that
car was nasty. Nasty.
It was such a fun car. And I really got much better at driving a stick with that car. But silver with a blue stripe on it, it was just another fast car.
She was
6-speed Tremec. It was just so cool to drive. I loved it when you had captain's call, as you would say on the boat, but we could flip the exhaust on and off, so I kind of kept the mufflers on coming down the street, and then I couldn't wait to flip the switch to turn off the exhaust as I marched down the road, as you could hear me anywhere.
Awesome. It's awesome.
So much fun. So much fun. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's like you have to put the Corvette in Z mode in order for it to open up the corks, so to speak, so that it gets louder. It's amazing. The Escalade, you have to put it in V mode. But believe it or not, the Escalade, talking about supercharged, the Escalade is louder grumble and more gurgle than the Corvette. It's actually quite embarrassing for Corvettes.
Funny. That's pretty funny.
It's kind of funny because I actually want to take it to like a Corvette meet. While my husband pulls up in his Corvette, and I'll just roll in my 8,000-pound freaking big ass SUV, and I can't wait.
Oh my God.
This is, I'm going to get out my New Balances, my polo shirt. Hey, guys.
Did you hear me coming?
Yeah. It was funny because we were talking about it the other day, Jake and I, and he goes, Mom, you know that technically your Escalade's faster than it's 682 it's 682 horsepower, and it actually is faster than the Corvette if by stats.
Yeah.
But weight wise,
yeah,
it's not going to get out of its own way. Right. I mean, it actually does get out of its own way, but it's not going to just pick up and go like the Corvette.
Yeah.
You floor the Corvette, it's gone.
Yeah.
So that's, it's wild. That's wild. But that's awesome. And I get it. I get that whole, the whole gurgle in the, and I remember the Marauder doing that. And he'd show up all the time. Even like when Bob, when he was driving his Marauder, when he would bring it up, we'd always know when he pulled in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very distinctive notes for sure.
It's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, it's awesome. Yeah. I mean, where can you go wrong?
I know.
You can't. Not even a little bit.
Right.
So Kenny Brown's place is still available. You can still go see it. You can still go to his.
I don't know if they have a shop or if it's all done virtually at this point. You know, they have a sales force and ship equipment. I don't know. I'm sure. I don't think they're working on any vehicles directly, but the R&D has already been done, and still, big proponent for Mustang enthusiasts and whatnot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
He's beautiful. That's the whole car. And I'll put a picture if Mary will allow me. Of course, sure. I think she will. I'll put some pictures up if you want to send to me with this episode, so you guys can actually see the cars, and you guys will be able to. We'll do a whole week of spotting it, and you guys can do a little thing of meeting Mac. Even though Mac is no longer with us, he is gone away, so he's with us in spirit.
5 years ago now.
I can't believe it's been 5 years.
5 years. Yeah.
That's insane.
I know. It's hard to believe. So.
5 years.
One of the cool times Mac and I spent with Kenny and Carrie is that they were involved with Shelby has a lot of local or regional clubs. And it was the Midwest Club was having an event at Road America, which is also a NASCAR track, because NASCAR does ovals and they also do performance road course driving. Mm-hmm. So Kenny was there, and we were doing tire temp testing. So they hired us for the weekend to work with them to be testing tire temperature. So we would have a chart and a probe that we would put into the tire, left, right, and center, and we would record the tire temperature. Huh. So a little lost on me as to why, but that's okay. But it was really cool spending some time with them. And Kenny had a number of cars, and they brought some of his cars. So I got a chance to be a passenger in Ruby, and we went on the track, and I was buckled in. Oh, Kenny is a professional. So at one point I said, "How fast do you think we're going?"
You shouldn't have asked.
And Kenny says, "I don't know. I don't have a speedometer."
So how do your G-forces feel?
So he figured it was about 150 miles an hour around the track. And I said, "I'm glad I'm in my 5-point harness." Yeah. I was glued to the seat. Thank goodness. But it was a thrill of a lifetime to ride with Kenny. I actually came across a picture the other day. I'll put it up in my profile on Facebook. A shot of through the passenger window of the two of us with our helmets on the car, and it says Kenny Brown on the helmet.
That's awesome.
So it was just so cool to have that experience, to play with Kenny at a NASCAR track.
Oh, I would love to race down a NASCAR track. Like, it would just be I feel it would be just so exhilarating. Like, because you don't have to worry about, I mean, I guess you don't really have to worry about a squirrel or anything running out in front of you.
Probably not. Just other drivers that think they know better.
Yeah.
But the tracks that I've had experience with, I mentioned Spring Mountain out in Vegas. Blackhawk Farm is a track it's on the Illinois-Wisconsin line. And I spent a whole day there with the Shelby regional team. Oh my God. It was intense. So it's 20 minutes on the track, and then 40 minutes off, and then you're back on the track again. And it depends on how many people are rotating through. But I got some amazing photos of me on the track. Oh my God, it was just an amazing experience. in 2012 for Kenny Brown's Performance's 25th anniversary. They rented Putnam Park in Indiana, south of Indianapolis, and we spent 2 days on the track there. And Mac and I would take turns driving the car, and he had a yellow race suit, and I had a black race suit, and we had.
I think I've seen pictures of him in his yellow race suit.
And we had patches from every place that we had done. And actually, when we did Route 66, we got a patch from each state. So up one arm and down the other arm, there were 66 patches from every. I should have brought. Next time when I'll bring it. I should have worn my race suit.
You should have.
Next time,
because on HotRod Mess, you can wear whatever the fuck you want. I don't care.
I forgot about that. Yeah. So I should wear my racing suit.
You wear what you're feeling.
I've worn that for Halloween masquerade party, not masquerade, but Halloween costume parties. I wore my
awesome.
Suit. Why not?
Little does everybody know that it's like you really raced in it.
And Mac's suit was really cool, bright yellow, but it's full of signatures. He got everyone's autographs. He said, autograph my racing suit. And there are autographs all over it. So anytime he went anywhere, it's full of signatures.
What an amazing journey. And guys, we're going to talk about Mac because he was such a beautiful human. And we are going to talk about him. Mary's going to come back on the show and we're going to talk about him, all about Mac's journey in life, because it's going to be kind of just all dedicated towards Mac. Just so you know, Mary, because Mac, believe it or not, he was one of the first, and correct me if I'm wrong, he was the first police officer to be shot in one of the first bulletproof vests.
Yeah. He was the first survivor of the Kevlar vest.
Yes. That's wild to me. Yeah. Wild to me. And then to see him go on all this magical journey. I mean, I think it was magical. I mean, how lucky.
Talk about living life.
Yeah, live it.
Living life. He lived to the end.
That's my goal. That's our goal here for HotRod Mess, to go out. I've actually, believe it or not, because the car community is so big, I've reached out to a couple of different car people that I keep seeing all these awesome things. There's a huge car show that has brought out some awesome cars in Washington. And I would love to go to Washington anyways. It's on my bucket
State
list.
or DC?
State.
Oh wow. Across the country.
And there's a gentleman, it's called the Fast Cars 2 Club. I can say that 3 times fast. And he has beautiful cars. I'm friends with him. I follow him on TikTok. And I cannot wait. And then you have like the Dirty Hands Car Club. They're in Worcester, actually, which was wild. They happened to jump in on one of my lives.
No kidding.
Yeah, and I had no idea who they were. And they're actually a husband and wife that started the club, and they build old school like rat rods and trucks and things like that. And some of their trucks that they have built together, and they're literally like his wife is hands-on, like she's in the nitty-gritty. She's building it physically with him.
I love that.
It's just, they're beautiful. The Dirty Hands Car Club is what they're called.
I never heard of them before.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to find them.
I didn't either. And then they popped up and I'm like, oh my God, you're like in my backyard. You're an hour and a half away from me. So I was hoping they were going to put together a car show schedule or something so that we could kind of bring the cars up and go see them and hang out with them for a little bit. Cause it's just wild. Like it's amazing. And, and then you start talking about you're connected, like everybody, like I sat at a graduation party last weekend and I was talking to this lady who she was like, I think she was in her mid 70s maybe. And she was talking to me about cars that she remembers when she was younger. And then she started telling me stories about her car. And I'm like, well, now we're connected.
Yeah.
Now we're connected. Look at that. All by a car. Which is wild to me on how Mac grew this circle of his life. And he just had such a great stories. Like I did have stories with him, but I never really got the whole story of the Kenny Brown Shelby. Mm-hmm. Never really got the whole story. I just saw her when she came to me and I went, oh, that's a rat's nest. Oh boy. And I remember John's look on his face and he goes, ah, fuck. What the fuck? And then he looked at I remember he looked at Mac and he goes, are you going to be one of those pain in the asses that shows up all the time? And he was with his cigarette and he was like, what if I am? He goes, well, I'm going to tell you, you're a fucking pain in the ass. And he goes, I'm going to tell you you're an asshole. Well, I guess we're fine then. That was it. Like, rip the fucking Band-Aid off. Here we go. And it was funny. And then when Mac needed time to kill, and he would come to the shop, and we were like, well, if you want, he's, I'm just going to clean up. And we would, and to razzle him, we'd be like, it's just another fucking Mustang thing. God damn it! It's not a Mustang! Ford shit box. Just fuck with him, and he would get so mad at us. But it was funny. Yeah, it was so funny. And then we'd be like, and I would come out and be like, are you guys razzling him again? Yes. I'm pretty sure. And then I think he wrote, we've kept it for a really long time, actually. We've never got rid of it, was his dustpan that he went out and bought. Not a shovel. Dustpan. Shelby.
He took great pride in sweeping the floor at the shop. He absolutely did.
He was great.
He loved that. He just loved being connected. He loved to tell me that, said, these are my first friends. They're not your friends. They can be your friends, but they're my first friends, so I met them first. He was so proud of that on Cape Cod.
I claimed them first.
My friends first. Yes, exactly.
I love him. That's awesome. I claimed them first.
Yes, exactly.
And it was great. It's so beautiful that he got the other Shelby before he passed away. Yeah. He got to enjoy that.
Yeah.
I mean, what a beautiful, like, just experience for him to be able to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
You guys both got to enjoy it.
Yeah, we did.
Which was awesome. So I love the stories of you traveling, and I love that you went down Route 66. And
great experience.
Hopefully I'll be able to drive down Route 66 in my Chevelle when the time comes. Yes. That is my goal. My husband did just tell me that I can drive it on the highway. He said, your RPMs are just going to be screaming. And I said, that's fine.
That's right.
It's fine. Blow another motor up. It's fine. Check. Yeah. There goes another one. So, Mary, this is awesome. I love it. I love the enthusiasm of how just the whole everything just comes together. It's so beautiful. And I want to say thank you so much for coming on our show. And thank you for being part of my Hot Rod Mess.
Oh, my pleasure.
I thank you so much for all of your insight. Because talk about connections, right? Mary is the reason why we're here. Mary's helping me get to that next step. Kicking ass. Thank you, everybody, for joining Hot Rod Mess. And thank you for joining us on this journey. You can find all of our stuff at www.hotrodmess.com. If you have a badass story that you want to tell us about your story of maybe your Shelby or your Mustang or whatever your car is, you can hit us up at hotrodmess@gmail.com. Other than that, peace out.